Hugging Chat was a bit of a hit and miss, but when it actually hit, the quality of machine translation was quite good.
Japanese subtitling is charged at the highest rate of any language, and Japanese dubbing is the 6th most expensive rate of any language.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Slater Pod. Hi Esther.
Hey Florian.
Been a while. About 4 weeks, 5 weeks of news to catch up. Did have a number of great guests. We had the panel about large language models. So, but there's a lot of other stuff that's happening that only you can update us on, Esther. So we'll stick around here. So first, we also sent our second edition of the Toolbox Journal. Remember, we took over the Toolbox Journal from Joost, and we sent out second edition. Nearly 10,000 subscribers for that, geared towards freelance linguists, experts. And yeah, so that adds to the 15,500 that we have on our newsletter. So now we have nearly 26,000 subscribers overall over at Slater. So if you do want to subscribe to both, you can do that now on the website. It was a bit of tweaking that you can subscribe to both in one go. So head over there and do that. Also, do register for SlaterCon Remote. Another one coming up in June. Great agenda, lots of great speakers. We got Marco Assis from Propio as the keynote speaker, the interpreting provider in the US. We have a AI dubbing panel headed by Anna Wyndham, our head of research. Then Dell is joining us. We have ServiceNow, buyer presentation. AstraZeneca is joining for a buyer presentation. So lots of good stuff going on, and register now, early bird. So today we're going to talk about quick LLM, ChatGPT wrapper. So much happening. That's why it feels like our last pod was like a year ago, because there's just so much happening, even if it's only 4 weeks. Yonkers sold to a private equity firm. You're telling us a bit more about super agencies, Zoo, and maybe we get time. We can still cover Straker, which also put out full year results. So did you have a chance to check up on that ChatGPT and localization conference that Konstantin put out?
I had a little look, yeah. Saw some familiar faces.
It was great. Kudos to Konstantin. Great, timely online event, free, put on YouTube. Encourage everybody to go there. Had a quick opening panel with Jaap van der Meer from Taos, and moderated by Konstantin Drange from Custom MT. Spoke about what's going on currently, how we see top down. But for me, more interesting that kind of my 30,000 foot view on this were some of the use cases by the TMS providers. And so, for example, Localize with a K. Sorry, you could just, they picked the brand. I didn't. Localize with a K, you got to say.
A K and an S.
Localize with a K and an S. They had a really interesting initial kind of how to integrate these large language model capabilities in a TMS, right? Because yes, I can go to OpenAI, I can punch in my query or my translation prompt into the box, and out comes something that's maybe useful, maybe not, right? But that's not really integrated into your day-to-day work if you're a freelance translator, in-house translator, or if you're at an LSP. So Localize had a really interesting integration where it's integrated into their TMS, and it gives the linguist options like rephrase, make SEO friendly, edit context, shorten, or suggest variants. It's really nicely integrated into their existing UI, and you can just kind of click a button, right? So source sentences there. You click the button, you kind of make it very interactive with these different options. So to me, that was kind of a glimpse of where I think this is going, and also that it is likely to be, at least in the short to medium term, not completely disruptive, but more complementary, right? Because you still need the TMSs, you still need the enterprise-grade integrations into, these hundreds or even thousands of different content management systems, custom or not, that are out there where content's flowing through. But of course, you want to make sure that you have that you leverage these new LLM capabilities in the translation workflow. So yeah, it was great. It's on YouTube. Go check it out. There was also BureauWorks was there, Phrase was there, and they gave some kind of overview of how they're integrating these capabilities. So very interesting. Also, of course, you do want to check out the ChatGPT panel we had with Adam Bittlingmeyer from Modelfront, Varshul Gupta from Dubverse, and Mia Vlad from RWS. That was probably our longest podcast, about 70 minutes. So, getting to the 2-hour mark at some point. Very interesting there as well. So yeah, lots of stuff is happening. How are you kind of keeping up with all this stuff that's happening in ChatGPT, LLM land? And like, did you get a subscription for ChatGPT as well now? Or
Yeah, I have a subscription, which is great. I'm playing around with it. But I mean, how am I keeping up? Well, I don't know. It's a struggle, I'd say, right? Even if you're on top of this sort of day in, day out, there's still a lot to process and think through. So I don't know. I think sometimes putting it down even for like a week or so and then revisiting the question of how is all of this going to shake out sometimes helps get a bit of clarity.
There's so much going on in terms of the generative aspect and on the translation aspect. I think a lot of people are stunned by the quality they're getting from, for now it's OpenAI ChatGPT, but we also just saw Hugging Face launch Hugging Chat. And this is free, and we tested it, and it was a bit of a hit and miss. But when it actually hit, the quality of machine translation was quite good. So, and that is free, right? It's based on Facebook's LLaMA model. Probably they call it Llama model. So Hugging Chat is same interface as ChatGPT. So you can go there, you can prompt it to translate. And as I said just now, I mean, hit or miss. Sometimes it kind of completely breaks, unlike ChatGPT. But then when it does actually do the translation, it's quite good. So you got the generative aspects, you got the translation aspects there. And now we have the integrations into the TMS, kind of the early phases there. So yeah, I will try to summarize kind of the latest findings at SlaterCon Remote. I have another 4 or 5 weeks. So let's see what happens until then. Probably a little more clarity on especially the integration side. Yeah, one company that's certainly now trying to integrate a lot of this would be Yonkers. And now they got the funds having sold to Mayfair Equity Partners. So tell us a bit more about that deal, Esther.
Yeah, so this is a deal we covered. It feels like a while back now, but just a few short weeks ago. So Belgium-based LSP. It was founded in the mid-90s by Mark Yonkers, so self-titled LSP there, Yonkers. Now got a presence in the UK, the US, all around Europe and Asia. People probably heard of it since it's been around for a good number of years and has also grown to become quite sizable, particularly in recent years. So Yonkers was actually one of the fastest growing LSPs in our language service provider index in 2023. So they posted something, I think, over 75% growth organic in 2022. And are now around $35 million, in US dollars in revenues. They do a lot in the technology and retail verticals. So they, would work with the likes of Microsoft, Adobe, Amazon, these kind of customers. And I think a lot of their organic growth generally has come from or been supported by their proprietary TMS. So back in 2015, a long time ago now, they began developing this TMS called Words Online. It's proprietary, cloud and AI based, and it was designed to support continuous localization. So obviously very suited to those particular customer segments in tech and retail. So designed to support, those high volumes that are needed in short turnaround times. So yeah, on the transaction, they sold to Mayfair Equity Partners. They now plan to obviously continue growing, probably deliver some bolt-on M&A, continue investing in tech, and reach new markets. We, Slater, actually acted as an advisor to Mayfair in the transaction, which we're obviously very
full
pleased
disclosure
and happy about. And yeah, it's I think Well, one of the points that we've made about Yonkers most recently is their leadership that changed fairly recently. They had brought on board some ex-SDL execs, specifically Silke Schweiger, the CEO. She originally joined as, I think, CRO and then stepped into CEO role in 2020. So obviously, doing a good job there, continuing to post good growth.
Yeah, 75% growth. I think that's good for 2022. All right, so Yonkers, 35 million, not quite a super agency yet, but if they keep growing at 75%, they're going to be there in like 4 years. So let's see. There has been some news on the C-level at a handful of super agencies. Tell us more.
Yeah, like you said, a couple of super agencies, C-level changes. The probably biggest one would be a new CEO for WeLocalize. It was previously led by co-founder Smith Ewell for decades. And Paul Carr has now joined as CEO of WeLocalize. He comes from came from Third Bridge, which is an investment research firm, was president there, and now has taken up the CEO mantle at WeLocalize.
And he knows a thing or two, by the way, about business services. He was the CEO or president of Axiom. It's kind of a legal services provider, so very much in the legal space. And I know legal is a key vertical for WeLocalize as well. And then he's also a non-executive director at Williams Lee. Are you familiar with Williams Lee? Have you ever competed with them at Donnelley?
They were a name that I knew from years back, definitely. And it was Williams Lee Tag at one point, but they were quite heavily into sort of the marketing and creative production, I think.
They were our key competitor for some of the staffing services with the banks in Asia. So we staffed some translators on site with some of the big investment banks. We, like my previous company, CLS, and then Williams Lee also had a bunch of their people basically on site with the investment bank, like in one of these kind of cost plus deals where the bank doesn't want to bring all these people onto their own payroll, so they have vendors hire them but place them on site with them. And so actually some of the people that our outsourced staff would report to were people that were staffed by Williams Lee. So the kind of layers upon layers there. So yeah, Williams Lee, one of the bigger providers in the document services space. And so, yeah, Paul definitely has the background.
Knows a thing or two.
But then Lionbridge had 2 announcements, but one of them was C-level, one of them was TMS related.
Yeah, so we've got a new chief marketing officer for Lionbridge. I've been practicing her surname, so I'll give it a go. It's Manaka Thilayampalam. New CEO of Lionbridge. She started at the mid to late March of this year, and will be reporting into John Fennelly. So she comes with 20 years of experience, more than 20 years, kind of broad reaching across Dell Technologies, Amazon or AWS, banking, Circle Group, LinkedIn, and Accenture. So she'll be doing a lot on the marketing front over at Lionbridge.
We had Jamie as a speaker. He's left a while ago.
He spoke, I think it was more recently than that, wasn't it? It was maybe 2021 that he was at one of our SlateCon remotes. Yeah, he left, I think, a year ago.
Jamie Punishill. So he left maybe a half a year ago or so. So new CMO there.
Yeah, and also a new translation management system, or maybe not new, but a new agreement. So Lionbridge has signed a multi-year agreement with Phrase, formerly known as MemSource. This happened in early April that they announced the contract, where they will be integrating Phrase's cat tool functionality into Lionbridge's workflow. So this obviously followed an extensive, thorough review of the market, as you'd imagine when you're going out looking for something like this. They evaluated proposals from different cat tools and selected Phrase ultimately as their TMS partner.
Interesting that both, just going back to WeLocalize, we had Smith on the pod, and he was also saying, look, we own kind of the the core of the system, the ERP, but like we plug all of these other tools and systems into it, including the TMS and the CAD. And now you have Lionbridge also with this deal, in a sense, saying, well, we don't want to own that piece of tech, meaning the TMS and the CAD tool. We have other components here, but so we're basically using this, what some say, like a best of breed approach. And yeah, Phrase, a big win for Phrase. I mean, that this is public, that's a big win. That one of the biggest agencies out there has kind of selected them after what I'm sure it was a thorough review. That's comes with a lot of bragging rights. So congrats to Phrase. Another one that does own the whole stack is RWS.
Indeed, they do own the stack, but less happy news coming out of RWS. I think the past week or so, they had a trading update, being a listed company in the UK. RWS updated investors on the 6 months of trading that ended at the end of March this year, 2023. Wasn't such a happy kind of, days, weeks that followed. RWS shares in RWS plunged actually on the day that the update came out. So it was the 25th of April. The share price fell by more than 16% in one day and have continued to fall further into May, where we are today. Shares trading at around 251 pence, £2.51.
Used to trade above 600, huh?
Yeah, used to trade much higher. And obviously all of that has an impact on the market capitalization, which has, I think, dropped significantly since a peak around April 2021. Now the market cap is actually, I don't know for the first time since when, but it's trading, the market capitalization has dropped below the £1 billion mark. So it's now 900 as of whenever I looked this morning, 978 million pounds. So around 1.2 billion US dollars.
You could argue it's cheap now, the stock, right? I mean, they're still generating, I'm checking the figures here, like 128 million pounds in pre-tax profit for the full year. So that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but I think it's obviously lower than perhaps what some people were expecting. You mentioned the pre-tax profit in that period is expected to fall by 11%.
Yeah, I think you also on the top line, but still very profitable, very solid. But of course, if these figures stop growing, then you take the growth component completely out of the stock, and that triggers what I guess analysts would call a re-rating. So it goes from being a growth stock to just being kind of more of a dividend stock. And so let's see where shares are gonna end up this year. Probably, I think we're if they keep up that profitability. I mean, again, I'm not a financial analyst, but I think we're probably near the bottom here. No financial advice. Media, Zoo, they dropped a bit of an announcement of and kind of an interesting one because they didn't disclose which company they're going to buy or which unit they're going to buy. So Zoo Digital, they raised capital, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a multi-layer announcement or news piece here. So on the one hand, they announced that they've raised money. Again, this is a UK listed company. So they did a share placement in which they raised ultimately around 15.5 million US dollars alongside a smaller retail offer where they wanted to raise around half a million pounds. So all of that kind of, I suppose, is the backdrop to their plan to acquire a media localization company in Japan, which is how they plan to spend the proceeds, acquiring one of their longtime partners that, as you said, I think it was not named, but they described the target as a media localization subsidiary of a leading Japanese technology company. So perhaps not a standalone company per se.
Yeah, immediately my mind went to Imagica, but then that was already done with the SDI deal. So now I'm kind of blanking on what Japanese technology company that could be.
We need to sort of up our intel on the Japanese tech market.
If anybody knows, drop it in the comments.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out in due course.
They should tell us. They also announced a small one, like literally today or yesterday, Friday.
Okay, I haven't spotted that.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, it's continuing the strategy of kind of investing in and or acquiring in these quite strategic locations. So Zoo previously invested and or acquired in South Korea, India, Turkey to kind of help with that global expansion. Japan for them is strategic as well. They gave a few kind of their take on the Japanese subtitling and streaming market generally, saying it's a growth market for all global streaming services. They said Japanese subtitling is charged at the highest rate of any language, and Japanese dubbing is the 6th most expensive rate of any language. So I think the idea is try and have a bit tighter operational control on language production for Japanese there.
Then also Straker announced results, revenue up 6% to nearly $60 million now, or sorry, that's probably New Zealand dollars. I'm reading it off the original. Adjusted EBITDA is up a bit, although I don't know how to unpack the adjusted component. Cash flow apparently being solid, good margins, but investors aren't super keen on it. Checking the share price, kind of steady over the past month, but also took a big hit over the past kind of since the start of the year, down from like probably down about 30%. So generally, there's some of the publicly listed companies in our space are taking a bit of a hit, but let's see how this pans out for the rest of the year. All right. So again, register for SlaterCon remote, and let's not wait for another 5 weeks to do the next news podcast.
Agreed.
See you soon.
See you.